a woman is a special gift from God. Becoming the woman God purposed is a special gift back to Him. As women, we are required by nature to juggle several acts and play several roles. And within all of us is the desire to be the best that we can be at all times. On becoming this women of virtue, substance, and grace is an ongoing journey, and one that requires us to embark on a daily lifestyle. Today on Chapters, we're talking about how we can become these kinds of women through the book, The 31 Woman, written by Funto Ibuoye, the founder of the Beautified Network, an initiative set up to help women live their lives to their fullest potential. And so it's my pleasure to have you here on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
And I see why you run the Beautified Network, because you are beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
But before we go into the book, The 31 Woman, what is the Beautified Network about?
Okay, the Beautified Network is an initiative for young women between the ages of 18 and 35 to inspire them to live in the fullness of life that God has called them into. Because I realized that most young women within the age range, think that life is majorly all about going to school, getting married, having children, and then that's it. So what next? I mean, I believe that God has called us to more than just that. There's so much more that God has placed inside of us, especially as women. But yeah, so that's the basic idea behind the Beauty Network.
So you do like seminars?
Oh yeah, so we do seminars and conference. We have a major conference annually called the Becoming Conference. So basically, we get women who have sort of become, to come and share their real life stories to inspire with the younger women.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
And I know that this is your second book.
Yes, it is.
So what inspired this book, The 31 Woman?
Okay, so initially God gave me this idea when I was still in school to do a devotional, and I actually started doing the devotional, but then my laptop crashed, and so I lost all the, so, and it was supposed to be a 365-day devotional, so I was already about 200 days, so
wow,
I just didn't bother about it. And then that same semester, someone in my set, a guy, did the exact same devotional that I was working on with the same. It was just exactly, and then I saw it. I'm like,
steal your laptop.
Well, when I saw, I'm like, no, this is my vision. This was with my devotional, and so it just occurred to me that really, when God tells you to do something,
it was like
if you don't stall, if you stall on it, rather, it's going to get someone else to do it, And so when I got married, and, the idea came to do this devotional again for young women. And, I didn't want to, I remember that experience, and I just didn't want to stall on it. So, immediately I picked up my laptop, and then, I started writing. It took me about 3 months to actually put it up together. So, yeah. So I think it was just basically the whole idea of wanting to see young women live in the fullness. That's what the 31 Woman is actually about. So it's not exactly about the Proverbs 31
It's actually
woman.
not.
Yes. It's because 31 means like, when a full month has 31 days. So 31 means like fullness.
Okay.
So yes, living in the fullness of life that, God has called us into. Yeah. So.
Personally, what do you think is the importance of using a daily devotional?
I don't know how I would have survived without a devotional, really, not beyond using this. I have like 3 other devotionals that I use on my smartphone, because aside reading the Bible and reading different chapters of the Bible every day, there's just something about devotionals that are specific to maybe a situation that you're going. So like currently I'm reading this devotional for busy moms, and it just puts a lot of stuff in perspective for me. So I think a devotional just really helps you, helps you find that scripture that is necessary for whatever situation it is that you're going through at whatever particular time.
We'll just start from the beginning of the devotional, because what I think I would like us to do is to look at the character and the substance of a woman. And I'll take it from the way that you also describe different things on different days of devotional. And I like that you started with being beautiful. And the first 3 days were inner beauty and outer beauty. And yes, we all know inner beauty is the real beauty. But even then, there's still a place for beauty on the outside. How do you balance both?
Yeah, like you said, inner beauty is the major thing. But then I believe that God created us women to be really beautiful. I mean, God took his time to create us, and so we have to represent that. So I like when I go into a place and people look at me, I'm like, oh wow, Funto, you're beautiful. So it's not just because I carry Jesus on my head, but because I actually look beautiful. I look good, and my makeup is on point, I smell good, my hair is properly done. Yeah, so I think there's a place for that. Nobody's going to see you for the first time and say, oh wow, this girl,
she's a halo.
So really it's our outer beauty that actually attracts people or pull people away from us. Yeah, so
fantastic.
It's really, really important.
And then you went to day 3, where you talked about being beautiful to God. And I thought that was a very interesting concept. Explain that.
Okay, yeah, for me, I mean, the crown of it all is really how God sees me. Yeah, so my husband or whoever looks at me on the outside might think, yes, I'm beautiful. Yes, I might have all the inner qualities. I might be kind. I might be loving. I might be all those good things. But if God looks at me and doesn't see beauty, then I mean, it's nothing. Because at the end of the day, I'm going to be standing before just one person and before God. And when I'm standing before him, would he actually look at me and say, yes, this girl, you really, truly lived a beautiful life? That's the essence. So it's beyond just dressing up on the outside, being kind, being good. How God sees us is what is actually more important. So at the end of the day, how does God see you? So are you spending enough time with him? Are you communing with him? Are you, just being in his presence, like doing what he wants you to do? There's a difference between doing what is good and doing what is God. So God has called you to do something.
Wait, don't gloss over that. There's a difference between doing what is good and doing what is God.
Yes, yeah, because indeed all good things are not good things. Everything, yeah, a lot of things are good, but not a lot of things are good. So what has God called you to do, basically? So that's the whole...
Well, how do you tell the difference between the good and the God?
Well, for me, it's telling the difference is about, so God has told me to do something. Am I doing that thing because God told me to do it, or am I doing that thing to please God? So at the end of the day, it boils down to the motive behind why you're doing what you're doing. So anybody can be kind. I mean, there are a lot of people who don't even know God, and they're good people. They are good people. But at the end of the day, is that what really matters? So anybody can do good stuff, but doing what God has called you to do, be the motive behind why you're doing it is, yeah.
Wow, that's very interesting. I need to think on that some more. And you went on then to talk about a very interesting concept for women, especially married women, submission.
It's really very interesting.
And it's sometimes very controversial topic. What is your take on submission?
My take on submission basically is, if I've chosen to marry this man, I mean, it's beyond the man that I've married, is my obedience to God. God has called me to submit to my husband. And for me, submission is about strength. It's not about being subservient. A lot of people think that being submissive means that you're just going to let one man walk over you and say anything and do anything. But no, I'm sorry, that's not what I mean submission. Because if God has called us to submit, so somehow I think that is because we kind of like have more power. For you to be able to submit, that means you're powerful, and so you have to, put down your power to let this man lead you. So yeah, so for me it's about obeying God and stepping down. And there are a lot of times when my husband says one thing, and trust me,
your head is reeling 10,000 things you can say back.
Exactly. But I've come to realize, and that was one major thing that we had clashes on when we got married. Like first few months of our marriage, like we're just always clashing, because I have a strong head, he has a strong head, so both of us were just always clashing. But I realized that if I really wanted my marriage to work, and I wanted to be, wanted it to be forever, I had to really submit I wake up daily and I have to submit my ego, submit my pride, submit my own way, and just trust that, God, you've told me to submit to this man. So whatever happens, good or bad, it's up to you. And I realized that the more I did that, my husband actually now started asking me for my own opinions and doing things my own way, even without me saying it. So it just made him like, so he kind of like dropped his own guard, like, okay, so this girl, she's now really,
she'll now listen to me.
Exactly. At the end of the day, submission is about understanding that you have this power and laying this power down for God to use to honor your husband.
Because I'll agree with you, just like the things that you would fight about or that you would shout about, when you keep quiet about them by himself,
exactly,
he will come back.
I've experienced that too much, really. Yes.
The power in submission. So many things that we as women need to learn, but we have to go on a short break now. We'll be back with Funto talking about the 31 woman, a woman of virtue, substance, and grace. We'll be right back. You are welcome back to Chapters, and today we're talking about all things women of grace, wisdom, and virtue. And my guest is still Funto Ibuoye, the author of the book, The 31 Woman. And like I said, I'm personally, because we are women, so I'm excited about these kinds of topics. And I liked your day 6. You talked about rejoicing and the power and importance of joy. And personally, a lot of things happen to all of us in life. Every single day. True. That can take away your joy. Single, married, young, old, 50, 70, 20, 10. But I'm going to read something you said. And you said, it's not because things are bad that you are sad.
Because you're sad.
It's because you're sad that things are bad. That hit me like, oh my God. How would you explain the place of joy in the life of a woman and even men?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think it can be overemphasized. I think joy is really what keeps us going. Like this morning I just read Hebrews 11 in the Message version, and it just hits me like, it says that, we all know that Hebrews 11, it says in other versions, it says that faith is the substance of things also. But the way the Message version puts it, says that this faith in God is the foundation that makes life worth living. And when I think about it, I'm like, really, I don't understand how people can live this life without God. And so and it's the same way with joy. Because trust me, there's so many things to keep you depressed and down every single day. So there's this joy, regardless of whatever is happening on the outside. It's different from being happy. It's different from happiness, because, happiness comes from
based on
what happens to you. Exactly. But joy is there's just this peace inside that, God has got this sorted. And, out of that understanding, you're able to rejoice that, okay, yes, I know, God, you've got this sorted. So no matter what I go through, I know that it's sorted.
So can you give a practical, because it's easy to hear these things and say, but a practical example of a time when you were either almost depressed or you were, and what did you do?
So I just joined the entrepreneurship wagon. And then it's been
an interesting wagon.
Very interesting wagon. And so I'm into interior design, and currently have 3 clients, and it's just only me for now. So I don't have an intern, I don't have anybody helping. So only me. I go to the markets, I have to go to the client sites, I have to liaise with all the artisans and shouting and keeping up with artisans.
Everything.
Exactly. And then having to manage my home, my son, my husband, cook. I don't have a maid as well. Do everything in the house, cook, clean, wash, do everything. So it was crazy. Last week was the height. And I remember that at one point, I was in the kitchen, I was washing plates, I just broke down, I started crying. I just really started crying, like, God, why is this so hard? But immediately, the moment I just started crying, the Holy Spirit just reminded me that, this is a process, and so just that thought, exactly, it's just a phase that will pass, and just that thought, it just helped me pass through that moment, so I know I wasn't crying because, oh yes, my world is over, there's no, this is, but I just knew that this too shall pass, and I'll come out of this, and it's like a stretch. So I'm going through this process. Exactly. I'm getting better. I'm getting stronger. So it's a stretch for me, and so just the thought of that brought joy to me. And then after that, I just went to listen to, I just locked myself up in the toilet. I was going to the bathroom. Locked myself up in the toilet and I was listening to music.
That's the
like
way.
really, and so that's my joy. It just came back, and that's what has made me. So the next day, I still did the same thing that I did that same day, but I felt better.
But I totally agree with you, and I think music, singing, is one of the best ways to sometimes. That's not really time to pray.
Exactly.
To pray
you can't even think of what to pray about.
So, just for the kind of music that will take your mind and just soothe you, or maybe just enter a time of worship. But rejoicing is one of the most powerful things. And when I read it here, I said, you were really onto something. And another thing that I liked is when you talked about humility. Well, you didn't say it like that. It was a chapter called "It's Not About Me." And you put a definition of humility. Did you come up with this definition? Let me read it out first. So she says, humility is not denying the power you have, but admitting that the power comes through you and not from you. Mm-hmm. Is this your definition?
I honestly can't remember.
Maybe you got it. But I thought that was very interesting because we tend to think that it is our ability, our power, our strength, which is why a lot of the times when we fall short of those things, you then want to get depressed because you think, why am I not yourself? And I'll tie this into failure because, like you said, they are very relatable. And our fear of failure, a lot of the times, especially Christians, for some reason, we just think that we are held to this bow of perfection.
Exactly.
And we mustn't break it.
Exactly.
And you said here, it is only broken men and women God can use. And our failures play a part in this breaking process. How have you handled your failures? And how would you, for people watching, because a lot of people are under self-condemnation and the weight of guilt, because just feel, I'm not living up to these standards. How should we handle failure?
I think everybody fails. Everybody fails. I've failed so many times. I can't even count how many. And when you mentioned guilt, personally, I believe that guilt is something that the enemy puts on us. Like, is this way that the enemy pours on, especially God's children, to just keep them down and depressed. And when you're down and depressed, God cannot really do anything.
Can't even reach you.
Exactly. So that's where the enemy wants us to do. So every time you do something, every time you fail, that guilt comes, that shame comes. You feel like, oh God, I failed you. Oh God, God can't use me again. There's someone I'm actually mentoring, and she keeps doing this same thing over and over again. And then every time she comes to tell me like, oh, Funto, I feel so dirty. I don't think God can use me. I'm like, don't say that. God can use you. In fact, God uses you. People when the Bible says that, God turns ashes to beauty. It is your dirt that is actually the ashes that God uses and turns into beauty. So yes, I just feel that guilt is something from the devil. God will never pour guilt and shame on us. And so we have to rise above that. So every time I fall, I realize that really I'm not perfect. I'm still a work in process. It's a mistake. And then if I have to confess my sin, I confess my sin. And then that's where I can hold on to God's grace. I'm like, God, please just give me the grace to overcome this. Exactly. God, please just give me the grace to, move ahead and, stop doing whatever it is that I need to stop. And then, failing also shows that you're not perfect. And it also brings to light the things that are in you that God needs to work on. So every time I feel, I'm like, okay, God, so this happened. So how do we work this out? How do we sort this out? So it just boils down to you understanding that you're not perfect and receiving grace. The Holy Spirit helps us and gives us the grace to overcome.
I think for me, it's really that grace, understanding that grace. Just this morning, I read, my grace is sufficient for you. And Paul said, and so I would rejoice in my insecurities and in my weaknesses, so that your power may rest on me. It's just understanding that place of grace. Wow. So much. I think most of the time it's just reminding ourselves of these things. And when you can't find someone that will remind you. Exactly. When you are deep down there in the dump. And so this is what we are doing. Reminding you people. It is about grace. We are all a work in progress. About grace. Certainly. We'll go on a short break now. But when we return, we'll still be with Funto talking about the 31 woman and how we can continue this process of becoming the women that God has made us to be. We'll be right back. So you're welcome back to Chapters, and we're talking about the woman being, well, according to Funto's book, the 31 woman, and we've been having a very engaging, interesting discussion. And I'll go to another wannabe controversial topic. You got to way of bringing out interesting things. Now, this one is purity versus virginity, and Christian, non-Christian circles, it's a very big issue. And on day 19, you even titled it, "Don't Stay Pure Till Marriage." So when I said, I was like, okay, I'll leave Funto to explain this one. So what is your take on this whole purity, virginity issue?
So why I wrote that "don't stay pure till marriage" basically is because I think there's a whole lot of misconception about what purity is and what virginity is. So a lot of people think that it's the same thing, but the truth is virginity is way different from purity. I mean, virginity just has to do with your sexual, so one part of your life, but purity has to do with your entire life. Purity is a lifestyle. I mean, so virginity is something that you can give away or can be taken away from you, but purity is not something that you can give away or something that can be taken
Purity
away.
is something you develop.
Exactly. So purity is how you live your life honoring God. So purity is about what you do every single day in every single aspect of your life, honoring God. So, and virginity is a byproduct of purity. So why I wrote "don't stay pure until marriage" means that once you get, your purity doesn't end after you get married.
Exactly.
You're supposed to be pure all the days of your life till Jesus comes. So you don't lose your purity or you don't give away your purity. So don't stay pure until marriage. Stay pure till Jesus comes. So that's the idea behind it.
And friendship amongst women. You really thought about, I really do like this devotion, I must say. And I said she thought about the different kinds of ways women are affected. And you talked about friends even sticking closer than siblings. And there's the notion that says women, we are not each other's friends, we don't support one another. What's your take on that?
I think by nature, women are very competitive.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's the root of everything. So women are fighting against women, fighting against men, just physically confused.
So they're even fighting against everybody.
So yeah. But I think it's something so right now, it's, you hear a lot of women supporting women campaigns.
Exactly. A lot of that is going on all around now.
Exactly. But beyond just that, I think it's about really, it's a spirit of sisterhood. Knowing that, I mean, when you understand that nobody can take what belongs to you and you're full in yourself, you're complete in yourself. What God has given to you belongs to you. Nobody can steal it from you. Then you'll be able to embrace other women. You'll be able to support other women. You'll be able to truly love other women. Because at the end of the day, it's just one goal. We're all running to achieve one goal, and we're all, the goal is to, at the end of the day, God sees each and every one of us and says, "Well done, good and faithful servants." That's our goal as Christians, as Christian women. So when you understand that, you'll be able to help your sister run her own race
as you're running yours. And even if you're running the race, maybe sometimes in the same industry, it does not mean that she can't run hers and you can't run yours.
Exactly. I mean, the sky is wide enough for different kinds of birds to fly.
Exactly.
So people just need to understand that there's enough space for each and every one of us to shine. God has called each and every one of us to shine. So don't think that because my shining would hinder your own shining. There's this quote that it says that lighting another candle doesn't
kill yours. Just makes them
exactly.
brighter.
So really, we really need to understand that as women, supporting each other, truly caring for each other and loving each other doesn't make you less of a woman or less of a star that you are or less of whatever it is that you're doing. But, it just helps you to grow, to really show that, we're of a different kind.
Things are changing. The narrative is changing.
The narrative is changing.
The more that when you show love, it's easier for the other person to learn and to show love and to show love and to show love. Fantastic. Like, we can't, obviously, you know that we cannot finish everything, so you need to get the devotional. But there's one more point that I think I would like us to talk about, making the most of your singleness. Because one of the things you said at the beginning is women just think, I finish school and then I get married, and that marriage is just the definition of my life.
Exactly.
And I love this, and you even said there that the things you could do when you were single, you found out that when you got married.
Just yesterday. I don't believe, just yesterday, I was just telling my husband that, you know what, I just wish I was still in my mommy's house. Like, my mommy's house, I wasn't doing anything. I'll just wake up and someone has made the food, someone has washed my clothes, and I just go to work and come. I'm like, wow, really? Yeah, so really.
For single women watching out there who, and I know that when you get to a certain age and stage, it's like, all I need right now is just a man. How would you encourage them to make the most of this time, knowing that that one will come?
I don't even know how to say it, but really, you can only, I don't know, you can only experience why you really should make the most of your single life when you're single.
When you're then married,
exactly,
then you remember the single days.
Exactly, because even I remember that there were times when I was single, I would just by myself, I'll take myself out to restaurants. There's this place on Ikoyi. I'll leave my house and my Magodo very early in the morning, Saturday morning. I'll go all the way to Ikoyi and I'll just spend the whole day there all by myself, you know.
Certainly can't try that.
As in, like, I can't even do that. Like, how do I want to stay all day?
Where will you put Bolago?
Like, you know, really. So really, there's nothing like making the most, and then you have a lot of time to actually find out what it is God has called you to do, find your purpose, and
which
is
important that is done before marriage.
You know, so you're not just getting into marriage clueless, not knowing what to do. Your whole life is dependent on one man, and the truth is, I think especially in this part of the world, we put a lot of pressure on our husbands. Like, your husband must be is everything, your provider, your priest, everything. And the men are pressured.
They themselves even
exactly,
have their
because
own.
they have their own needs. They need someone to provide to, you know, so really, you have to have found your purpose and understand that at the end of the day, everything comes from God, you know, and not your husband.
Yeah.
Before getting into marriage. So your single time is the time for you to fully
discover that.
Exactly, and soak yourself into finding out what exactly it is God has, you know, created you for. Yeah.
Wow. I have had such an interesting time today. Thank you for being such an amazing guest. Where can people get copies of the devotional?
Latana Bookstore for now.
Okay,
yes.
so you can get copies of the 31 Woman at Latana. It's 31, it's just 31 days. So, I mean, you can maybe pace it out. I'll say if you use it in January, then pick it again in April, then do it in, because you have to read it over and over and over again. But for every woman watching, I think this is a very essential tool in your library, and not just to keep, but to read. The process of life and living is a learning process, and there are so many things that we need to learn and to become as we pray to God and as we live our lives one with another. I thank you all for watching. I hope you've been impacted, because I have been. And until the next episode, we say thank you and God bless you.